911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey guys, happy Tuesday afternoon. I just got back from working out and I was thinking I'm just going to jump on because I've got a lot going on in my mind. And I was like, what better place to do this than with you guys and to just kind of talk about it. It's not that I'm not trying to let things go with the case because I don't want to just keep creating content for Delphi just to be creating content. I don't want to do that. But I've just been having some thoughts and stuff going on. And I thought, well, I could come on and share it with you guys and see what your thoughts are on some of these things. Because, wow, I just am having an issue with what Kathy Allen knew and when she knew it and her behavior. Not that any of it matters. We have a conviction. He was convicted on all counts and all of that. And I don't really think, if law enforcement suspected, anything like that, I think that they would have acted on it. But I'm still at a loss, I guess, with someone standing so staunchly behind someone. It bothers me a little bit. And I know that, I've talked about this before, but I do see her as a victim. I see her as a victim in all of this as the fact that she was manipulated by a classic male manipulator. And I feel like the writing was on the wall, so to speak, literally. And there were so many things that played into all of this. Why was he able to hide in plain sight for so long? Is this really how society behaves? You know, the trial itself was, I think Fran Gull tried her best to kind of keep it from being a circus. I think she did an excellent job. But the last week and a half was just crazy. Um, and I guess you would have to have some kind of a suspicion, I would think. Um, and your mind, I imagine, doesn't allow you to really go there because, again, it would be so traumatic, and the trauma of it all and accepting it would be so traumatic. I've gotten a lot out of reading some of the books that serial killers' children have written regarding um, the finding out about their family member, and usually their dad, as to what he was doing. And it is so traumatic to wrap your head around that. If it's hard for us to wrap our heads around it, I can't even imagine what that must be like for them. I want to say hello to everybody real quick. Hey, Farmer. How are you? Good to have you with me. Thank you for being here. Hey, Joe. Hi, Jill. Good to see you. Hey, Shane. How are you doing? Um, hey, Saint. Hi, Phil Bond. How are you? Hi, Eileen. How are you? I haven't seen you in a long time. Good to see you, my dear. Good to see you. Yeah, hey, Gibbo. That's good to hear. I do know that Sleuth's covering Flora, and I'm thrilled about it. Absolutely thrilled. Now we need to get Gray Hughes covering it. We need some of the bigger channels to bring awareness to this case. I don't know if you guys are talking about tech death, but that's not cool in my channel. Just so you guys know, he is one of my oldest and dearest friends, and he is a good person. So I hope that you guys aren't talking about tech death in my chat. Hi, Ziggy. How are you? Good to see you. Hi, Ellen. I don't normally, but I am going to start being live more during the day. So, let's see. Hey, John. How are you, my dear? Good to see you. Hey, Cecil. How are you? Good to have you guys here. So I hear you, Shane. I hear you. I hear you. It looks like a lot of you feel that she knew. Um, yeah, Shane, fighting with people, it's a, you know what I mean? It's, there's so many cliches out there. You can't fix stupid. You can't fix people that are not willing to have their minds open. I mean, it is what it is. He was convicted on all accounts, and he was convicted by a jury of his peers. So, let's see. Absolutely, I think that's very possible. I hope not, but I think it's very possible. I would never want or wish that for anyone. But hey, CJK, good to see you. How are you? Hi, Mitzi. Look at all you guys. Hi, Miranda. How are you? Good to see you, my dear. So glad that you're here. So glad you're here. Hey, Simon Wright from West Yorkshire. How are you? Good to see you. The next day in court will be December 20th, the day that he's sentenced. Yeah, Thanksgiving's next week, you guys. You guys all ready for that? I am like not ready for that. I am so not ready for the holidays. I can't believe they're here. And I can't believe that Thanksgiving is the last week in November. It's like really, really weird this year. So yeah, like I said, I've been thinking about a lot about what she may have known. I've always stated, and my stance was always that I felt that the Delphi suspect would be found in Delphi. I always felt he was local. I feel that about Evansdale as well. I feel that whoever committed the Evansdale murders was also local. I know I could be wrong on that because of the interstate that runs past there, but I really absolutely feel that that person is local simply because of where the bodies were placed in that case. The Seven Bridges reserve where they were found is so off the beaten path and so difficult to find. Again, I do not feel that that is not somebody that's local. It's somebody that absolutely knows of that place. So I always felt that way. And I always told everyone when we were discussing the Delphi case that it was going to be somebody that was hiding in plain sight, and that it would more likely be somebody that was your neighbor, that you talked to, that you went to church with. And as it turns out, it was a professional in the community who held a pretty decent type of a job, in my opinion, being a manager in retail of any kind. You have to deal, like I said, with the public. You see a lot of people, and in such a small community, I guarantee you that there were people that knew Richard, that saw him every single day, and knew him, talked to him, knew him as Ricky, I guess, the guy from CVS, who is kind and helpful and considerate. Those are the things that we heard about him. And let's see. I'm just trying to talk to you guys and kind of read it. Mr. Steve and Ruckus are very much deeply entrenched in Evansdale, and they are definitely working that case. And Drew deserves nothing less, and the girls, Elizabeth and Lyric, deserve justice in their case. So I always enjoy my chats with you guys because I have some really great thinkers in here, and I have very respectful followers. And I love you all for that, because we can always talk about things, and we don't have a lot of the crazy. Oh, thanks, Mariah. I'm happy that you do. I love my nails. So everybody knows that. And yes, I do. I do everything with them. I take care of Loki with them. I cook, I clean, I wash dishes. Everybody's like, how do you do anything with those long nails? It's like anything else, guys. You get used to it. You get used to how you have to do stuff. So it's a you gotta wanna be able to do it. I think that they can solve Evansdale. I also think that Flora can be solved. I'm one of these people that I don't like to take away hope. Um, I think without hope, we don't have much of anything in the world. And so I don't want to ever take away hope. Um, oh, it's so funny because um, I lost all this weight and my hair, it's I lost a lot of hair, you guys. A lot of my hair I lost. It doesn't look like it, but I did. And so but having my hair braided and having the dreads put into it has really saved my hair in my opinion. But it was something that I have wanted to do for a very long time. And I did it in August and I'm so pleased with it and love it. So but anyway, I I swear by the vitamins that I take. I will be on really strong bariatric vitamins for the rest of my life, just because of absorption issues with bariatric surgery that I had, you guys. So yeah, it's that helps as well, and also um, eating right and eating healthy. So um, I'm listening because I can hear Loki. Hold on. I gave him a chewy before I went live, and I'm hoping that what I'm hearing is he's chewing his chewy. I'm pretty sure it is, but guys, I'll be right back. Just give me a second. I just got to check on him and absolutely make sure that I don't have him eating something he's not supposed to be eating. What you got? Good. Good boy. Good boy. Yeah, he's fine. He's just eating his cow ear. I give him cow ears, and they absolutely help him out. But anyway, so okay, so yeah, um, I like I said, I've been thinking about it. It's been bothering me. I always felt like, how could a wife or a family member, a close family member, because Doug Carter, always told us that they put the video out there for somebody who knew Bridge Guy. It really wasn't for the general public to go try to figure out who this guy was. He kept saying, do you notice his mannerisms, notice how he, carried himself and stuff like that. And I've asked this of so many people, but if that was your husband up there on the bridge and you were watching that Bridge Guy video over and over again, wouldn't you notice? And I asked that question of Cheryl McCollum. And for those of you that know who Cheryl is, she's a very, very world-renowned CSI from Atlanta, and she's still working as a CSI in Atlanta. And you'll see her a lot of times on Nancy Grace shows. You'll see her on a lot of the shows that cover true crime because she's so well versed in these cases, and the cases that she's actually worked on, it's just unbelievable the amount of cases that she's worked on. And she said that absolutely they would have known and recognized who that was. And she firmly believes that. But I always felt that it was going to be just somebody that was just living. You know, it wasn't necessarily going to be somebody that had a checkered past, or somebody who had a a lengthy you know, sheet, that kind of thing. And because over time, I think after covering true crime for as long as I have, and looking at these cases and looking at the percentages and stuff, these guys are usually hiding in plain sight. You know, um, I don't know how many people you can find out there that were abused, or in some way abused by family members, by fathers and brothers and uncles and babysitters, and church people, people in the, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Little League coaches, all the places where people can get access to children. We all know that. Some of these abusive people are very professional. They're firemen, policemen, doctors, lawyers, bankers. I mean, they actually have upper education, a lot of times, or they hold down positions of authority. And so um, I think that was another reason why this case kind of consumed people, because I think a lot of people were triggered by this case, because I believed from the very beginning that this case was sexually motivated. And I continued to believe that to the very end. And I think over time, as it comes out more and we learn more, and hopefully, as time passes, I'm hopeful that Richard Allen will start talking to doctors and therapists, and reveal more about what led up to his actions that day. But our kids are so vulnerable, and we've all talked about this online. Over the years, I've covered many different live streams about how we need to be more protective of our children, and we have to be very careful about who they are with, and getting to know their friends and their friends' families. Don't just let them go to a friend's house until you know who that family is that they're going over there, to be around and stuff. I mean, I just think that that's very important. Sorry, one of my tarantulas is rearranging her house, and I'm like, this is funny to watch. But anyway, I digress. Uh, so there's a lot of people, and like I said before, um, a lot of times when there is abuse, because we were talking about, they brought in his daughter and asked, if he had ever abused her, because that was something that he admitted to. And she said no. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean that she might not have regressed memories, that she has blocked it out. It's odd that a person would admit to something so horrifically. Um, I just I just think, and like I said, I mean, I'm not here. This live stream, you guys, is not to bash Kathy Allen. Please do not think that's what we're here for. It's to try to understand the mindset of when you know something and how you're going to react to it. I will tell you that I thought it was extremely odd, her behavior in court when I was there. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to laugh and joke or whatever, but I don't think the courthouse is a place for you to be doing that when you're there for something that is so horrific and dark as to why she was there and why she was present. And to see her kicking it up and laughing and joking and being crazy in the hallways while I was there, that was just beyond weird. And I will say that. I just thought that was very strange. I did not see Richard Allen's mother. She was not there the day that I spent in court. She had fallen, and so I didn't get to see Janice. But I have heard from my trusted friends who have been in court every day about how Kathy and Janice acted, and also hearing their own testimony and going over that testimony as far as what they said or didn't say to him on the phone. And I believe that they were very much worried about what people were going to think or say. And that was one of the reasons why they were so adamant that he not confess. And we have this man who is telling them all of these things. He's actually telling his mother, Mom, why would I tell you this if it wasn't true? To me, that is the biggest truth in all of this. Right there. It's that simple. His confession to his mother and the fact that he said to her, Mom, why would I admit to this if it wasn't true? Why would I admit this to you if it wasn't true? That to me is so huge. And for people to just throw that aside like it didn't happen and say that it was because he was being coerced or driven, to say all these things. I do not believe that. Not for 1 minute. Absolutely. That was a true and absolute statement. I think that anybody that would be cohabitating and living with someone who is so much of a sociopath, don't know if he's a psychopath, but I definitely believe that he's got major issues. And I believe that he is such a manipulator that if she's been manipulated by him for nearly 30 years into thinking one way, then it reminds me a lot of it gives me a lot to reflect on as to why she would believe or overlook things or be in denial of things. You would never want to believe that about someone that you love. That to me is the truth. I mean, there is nobody that is going to want to believe that. And it's like, Nicely Done says this so well. Thank you so much for being here, by the way. I don't think I've ever seen you in my chats before. But I think you've been respectful and fair about Kathy Allen. Thank you. It's a very bizarre situation. He confessed and they ran to his defense attorneys to get him to shut up. Yeah, who does that? I mean, your first thought is, oh my God, we got to call the attorneys. He's confessing. What the heck? Wouldn't your first thought be to start asking him questions and to find out, what the heck was going on? I think that she has probably had many sleepless nights of replaying conversations over and over again in her head. Just similarly, like during the interrogation of him, when he was being interrogated by Jerry Holman and they left them alone in the room. And she's like, you never told me you were on the bridge that day. He told her he was out there and that he was on the trails, but he never told her he went to the bridge and was on the bridge that day during the time frame the girls were there. And that, I think, was a red flag for her. And I think that was something that made the hair go up on the back of her neck. But it's hard for us to understand that level of love, devotion, and commitment unless you yourself have been in a relationship that has spanned that many years. you know, I've been with my husband for 46 years. Um, we've been married for 45. And I'm like, I could never. I mean, if somebody came to me today and knocked on my door and told me they had a warrant for his arrest for murdering little girls, I would be like laughing at them, like, you are absolutely insane. There's no way that I would buy that or I would believe that about him. Um, he's capable of a lot of things, but I would never entertain that. And that's where it's at here when we have these conversations about what we know and don't know about the Allen family household. We don't know what went on in that house. And see, most people don't. Most people don't know what's going on in anyone else's home. It's your private life, you know? And I think what happens is Lisa's kind of got it here. At what point do you realize something or red flags become doubt to the point of, I need to do something, or why would you remain with that person? You know, again, we don't understand that mindset because we're not in it. It goes back to battered woman syndrome. You know, it's an actual thing. People don't understand why women stay with batterers and why the abusers, why do they stay with them? Why don't they just leave? Um, and if you study it, you learn why they stay and how dangerous it is for them to leave, and how, you know, these abusers tell them, I will kill you if you leave me. They're serious, you know. And so I know that they've tried to paint him as being a dependent type of personality and saying that he was dependent upon his mother and his wife. Maybe he was, but I believe that he was the dominant one in that household. And absolutely believe that he was. And I believe that he was hopeful to make them think that he wasn't. But, and, um, when you see your husband out and about or whatever, I always laugh because my husband's 6'5" and I can always find him in a store because he's always towering above everyone. So I always can find him that way. But when we are in a crowd, like a big crowd of people or whatever, I can always pick him out. I always can pick him out of a crowd. And I absolutely believe that she had to have recognized him on that bridge. I just do. Now, whether or not she allowed herself to believe it, that's another can of worms. But she had to have recognized him. And the voice. I mean, if you heard your husband or your brother or your father or your uncle talking, just talking on a tape, would you not be able to tell that was their voice? And, you know, that's another thing. Because our voices, you know, our voices tell a lot. My daughter and I have similar voices, I guess. Everybody says we do, and that we sound a lot alike. And to the point of sometimes family members can't tell us apart over the phone, which I find absolutely unbelievable because neither one of us hear it. We both think we sound different. And so it's really funny. But it's been hilarious because both of our husbands have misidentified us over the phone before. And so we have to be careful when we're talking about what we say and stuff so that, so we know they know they're talking to the right person, if that's crazy or not. But I got my Wicked cup, guys. I got one of them. Actually got them both. I got my cold cup and my hot cup that I wanted. from Starbucks. I told you guys that that's my vice. If I have a vice now, it's Starbucks. But I read something where, and I don't know if this is true, so I'm going to just put it out there that before I say that, but I did read something somewhere where, and I think Jinx may have said it on a Discord, where she read that Kathy Allen said to give, if anybody donates money, to donate it to prison reform. And I found that interesting because you know that the pro Richard Allen people are going to be trying to do whatever they can for his appeal. And which, by the way, guys, I don't think the appeal is going to go anywhere. I mean, that's just me. Appeals are really hard things. They are not done deals unless there has been some overtly obvious glaring mistakes made by the trial court. And the trial court, and the mistakes that have to have been made have to be things that, if rectified, would have caused a different outcome of the trial. And so that's the thing that I think we're looking at. And I think that Judge Gull was very, very competent enough to know that she had to protect this case for the appeal that would be coming. But I think that, the appeal is not going to happen right away. They have to prepare all of that. And God knows if it's going to be the same attorneys doing the appeal, I would be begging for something different. That's just me. But he gave up that right with the Indiana Supreme Court, and they told him that because I do not believe that had he chose to not have them return and would not have gone to the Supreme Court to get them put back on, his appeal would have been stronger, in my opinion. Hey, Frank Meister, how are you, my dear? Hey, Sharon, how are you? Great to see you guys. Hi, Mustang. And yeah, so I'm just thinking to myself, how's that going to all play out? Nobody's gonna let that go. I mean, they're just not. And the appeal is, sadly, it's going to take a while. And so for the families of Abby and Libby, this isn't going to be over for a long time. The verdict was just another step for them. Absolutely, in my opinion, the verdict stands. I don't see the verdict changing. I don't see him getting a new trial, and I don't see it being overturned. So at that point, once that process is done, the appeals process is done, then the family can start to really put things behind them. I hope that they are able to look at all the things that have transpired in the last month and a half with the case, and at least feel better in knowing that they got the right guy, and that and that he won't be able to hurt anyone else ever again. I hope in my heart that that's where they're at, but I think there was a lot of manipulation going on there, CJK. I remember watching the videos from their 25th anniversary trip that they took down into Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And that's where you see him and her, they're riding on the gondolier, the ski lift. And you hear his voice there. But on that trip, now, granted, this is a guy who, from all accounts, had a drinking problem. At least he did from the time of the murders to now. And she was egging him on to drink. He didn't want to in the video, but she was wanting him to. And I'm like, if you know that your husband has an alcohol problem, why would you be egging him on to drink? And they were trying flights. It was like a whole bunch of different beer tastings or whatever. And when I saw that video of her, I got a different feeling for her. I had a I don't know. I just kind of had a different feeling. So, I was just reading this. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I was just trying to read the chat. Sorry, guys. And so I saw a different dynamic between the two of them. And I saw that manipulation that she was doing to manipulate him into getting him to drink. And she seemed like an extrovert, a very outgoing extrovert type of person. And he seems like an introvert who is very closed off, non-social, very quiet, whatever. That's just from the few times that I've seen the videos and looked at the videos where they were playing pool. And they did that. Like I said, they belonged to a league. They played weekly. And that's what they did. I mean, that was their entertainment. And again, when you live in a really small town, less than 3,000 people, there's not a lot unless you have a family or a friendly game night where you all meet and play games or whatever. What are you guys going to do for entertainment? Do you go to a movie? Is there a movie theater that you can go to? I don't even think Delphi has a movie theater, does it? Does anybody know? Because I'm playing a blank here, but I don't think they do. So there wasn't a lot for them to do socially. What they did. They had the ability to go to a bar and hang out with friends, go get something to eat. Yeah, Shelly, I didn't think they did. I didn't think they had one. I don't remember seeing one when I was there. And a lot of those old towns, if they had one, they were on the square. At least they are here. There's still the old-fashioned, movie theaters with the marquee, the outside marquees. In our small towns, at least here, they are. And yeah, really wild. Let's see. But yeah, being able to, I was talking to a really close friend. For those of you who remember, I was talking to True Crime Maria, and we were reminiscing about 3 years ago when we first met, and things, and how we were feeling about the case, and a lot of the deep diving that we did on this case, and all the things that we looked at over these things, and all the different, rabbit holes that we all went down, and all the things that we looked at, and how we kind of felt that day, because she and I were, as soon as he was arrested, we were actually on the phone together. And so we were talking about it. And then, when they released the Bridge Guy sketch with his with his actual photograph and how we felt about it, you know. I mean, we looked at everything. We together, along with a couple of other close people in this community, we looked at everything, and um and everyone. And Richard Allen was never on the radar, you know. Um so I again, he was just a guy who'd never been in trouble, who is just out there. And they're everywhere, you guys. They are everywhere. Um, and I'm not talking about people that are capable of just committing the murder, but the people that abuse kids, the people who want to live out that fantasy of sexual assault, um, even if it's not kids, you know, if they're looking at just women, whatever. These guys live on the internet. There are places to go on the internet that caters to these types of individuals. And when you start getting into that bottom feeder type of places where these guys hang out, it's disgusting. I was going through some of the FBI stuff when I looking at this case, and it is horrific what these people have to look at on a daily basis, that spend time in these chat rooms talking to these guys and talking about these very deviant behaviors and unnatural, unhealthy desire to hurt women and to hurt girls, and it's you know, and that's one thing. I mean, that's one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is that these people are in our lives. We know these people. This is what Kathy Allen found herself. I think this is where she found herself, is that, you know, I go back to the abuse in my mother's own family. Her father was I consider him a pedophile. He sexually assaulted every one of his daughters. I don't know if he sexually assaulted anyone else, but I can't imagine that he would not have. But he had 5 girls, access to 5 girls. He had 5 girls and 5 boys. And he sexually assaulted all of them. His oldest daughter, he had 2 children with. She never left home. She lived in the house with her children, and her oldest child was the same age as my mother. They were just a few months apart. So that is what happened in my family. And this was, my mother was born in 1935. So just, you know, just in that time frame, things like this weren't talked about, but they happened. This abuse happened in families. It still happens today. Hey, Mitzi, thank you so much for supporting me and Behind the Crime Door. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. And you know, the stuff that happened in my mother's family, this family was destroyed by what happened to them. Every single one of the girls had issues. My mother did not remember the abuse to herself until she was in her late 50s and early 60s. But she had dealt with depression and deep depression and suicidal thoughts her whole adult life. And what was so sad about this, because this was a rural community, again, they were farmers, and this was a rural community. Everybody knew, though. Everybody knew that this was happening. And nobody did anything. The police didn't do anything. The school system didn't do anything. When my aunt became pregnant, she stopped going to school and she didn't finish school. She didn't finish high school because of the pregnancies. And they all knew. And my mom would talk about going when she was going to school, and they would say, oh, there's one of those. You know, they would whisper about her and whisper about them. And their family was known. I mean, it was known that this incestuous situation was happening. So if you guys think for 1 second that just because it's brought up that, oh God, that didn't happen or that doesn't happen, it happens. And it happens. I don't even remember what the statistics are now, but I think 1 in 5, it's either 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 boys will be sexually molested, and 1 in 3 girls. And it absolutely, Alan, they don't talk about it because my family, believe it or not, they idolized this man. And my mother's mother, my grandmother, she knew this stuff was happening. And what happened is she got tired of having kids. She got tired of being pregnant. She'd had 10 children and she'd had 4 miscarriages. So she had been pregnant 14 times and she was tired of it. And instead of figuring out why that was happening and how to stop it, she basically cut him off and said, there will be no more. And when that was done, that's when the abuse seems to have started. She basically put a lock on her bedroom door and kicked him out of the bedroom. Now, I'm not saying that if that happens, that every guy's going to become an abuser, but this was just what happened in my family. And I remember as a child never being allowed to be around my grandfather alone. And I always wondered why that was. And it wasn't until I was about 8 years old that I finally realized, because I finally asked. I wanted to know where my aunt's husband was, because I played with these kids and I was playing with these kids. And I was like, I didn't know who these people were. Why? You know what I mean? Like, why? And my mom finally told me. And he was a very a very evil person. He was manipulative. He beat his sons. The sons tried to defend the sisters. He nearly killed 2 of them for that, by beating them. And it's really a sad situation. But like I said, when you look at the family and how broken this broke this family, his dad, his own father, came to visit him. My mom remembers this distinctly. And she said he came to visit, and he knew this was after my oldest aunt had her first child by him. And he looked right at him and he said, "You are a disgrace to this family. You are despicable, and I will never darken your door again." And he didn't. But come on, you're not going to save your grandchildren. You're not going to save your granddaughters. You're not going to, you're not going to do anything. That's it. You're just going to walk away from all of these kids and let your son continue to abuse them. See, that's the kind of thing that I saw afterwards. I wrote a paper on this when I was in college, and talked about this whole thing this dynamic that happened within my family. And I also, would talk about it whenever I would come in contact with people who have gone through this kind of abuse. It's really hard, you guys. It is. I mean, how do you exactly, CJK? How do you move forward? how do you, I used to tell my mom, because we were so close, and I had so many conversations with her over the years about this and about her mental health and everything. And I would be like, but you guys continued to act like this man he was the center of everything. Everybody knew, but yet they still made him the center of everything. Nobody walked away from him. He ended up being in a nursing home and being taken care of by the oldest daughter. Um, she would visit him. Everybody would visit him. When he had his birthdays, it was like this big, thing. I'm just like, when you wrap your head around, like, it's condoning the behavior, but that's how families lived. That's how families lived. And it's so sad. And I used to tell my aunts, when I was growing up, and after I got to be an adult, I was like, someday you guys are going to pay for acting like this was all okay. I mean, I get that they were all abuse victims and survivors, but they all continued to have a relationship with this man and pretended like it was okay. And it was so freaking dysfunctional and so crazy. And it's like, I always told mom, I can't believe that you came out of this so normal, that you didn't abuse us. She could have easily been abusive to us, but she didn't, and she wasn't. So it makes you wonder. Richard Allen talks about the fact that he was abused, the fact that, all of these things he talked about in his therapy. And it's, you just wonder. And I wondered, as soon as I heard that he had admitted to that, I knew that it was very, very possibly true. And there are numbers of ways to abuse without the person even knowing they're being abused. This doesn't mean that it has to be an actual sexual assault, you guys. That's not what we're talking about here. What if he just watched while they were sleeping and took care of himself? What if he, would do things like that kind of thing? I mean, there's all kinds of ways to abuse. And people always they always go to the extreme, but there's other ways besides. But, and I've always heard, and what I think is terrible is when the moms find out and they kick out the daughters. They kick them out of the house, especially if they're teenagers when they find out. And I'm just like, what the heck? How can you know that your baby has been abused and it's okay, you know, and you side with the abuser? I think we're seeing that now in the Maddie Soto case. I mean, I think that's exactly kind of what we're seeing here is her mom was siding with Stephen Stearns. So, again, Farmer said it best. These people are dysfunctional families. And after a while, the dysfunction becomes normal. And the scars and the long-lasting generational effects are unbelievable, because it goes from generation to generation. It becomes normal, and it is scary at how common this is. And it's, I know from just talking as much as I have, professionally, from the grief standpoint of losing my son in my real life, and talking to people who've gone through the similar situations of losing a child over the years, I find out that how these people have been abused or were abused. And you come to find out that it is generational. And a lot of times they'll look at their daughters and say, this is just something that you have to do. And it's like, what? But that's, again, that's a norm. And I guess one of the things is, as I've learned over the years, is why women live in fear, why women grow up in fear. And I know that women aren't the only ones that are abused, and I get all of that. We know that, but for years and years and years, women were the norm, and it was. I think it's finally been okay to come out as males and talk about what has happened to them, because a lot of them are not only abused by other males, but they're also abused by women. There are women abusers, sexual abusers out there. And so it happens to them. And it's just, swimming with the sharks. How are you? Every non-biased person in that courtroom that heard Richard Allen's voice says it sounds exactly like him. So how did she ignore that? In my opinion, she's just selfish. I don't know. I mean, that's if she consciously ignored it. But what if she just subconsciously ignored it and didn't allow herself to go there? Oh, hey, GP. Thanks for being here. And I totally understand. I totally and absolutely understand. I will tell you that if you're able to talk about it, it's always a good thing. Again, my mom wasn't able to actually finally break through it and admit to herself of what she had buried. She buried it so deep. And it wasn't until her late 50s or early 60s before she found a fantastic therapist who was very, very well versed in sexual assault of children. And she knew right away that my mom had all the classic signs of someone who had survived that. And then when she started working with mom, that's how she found out. My mom had tried to commit suicide more than once. I believe at least 4 times in my life. The last time I was an adult, and it was after I'd lost my son. And it was right before she admitted to what, and was able to admit to what had happened to her. But it took a really good therapist who was willing to work with her and listen. And yeah, it went on in a lot of older generations, but it's still going on today. That's what's so sad. It's absolutely, I mean, I didn't realize at the time it was happening to myself. I was 13. I was 13 years old, and he was almost 17. And I didn't realize at the time it was happening what was happening to me. But it happened to me, and I didn't admit it until, to my husband, I think it was. I finally told him what had happened to me, and then I finally told my brother, because it was my brother's friend. It was one of my brother's friends. And I was in a movie theater with him when it happened to me. So, there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of stuff out there that it's hard to talk about. And it's hard to admit to yourself, let alone other people. And my heart goes out to everyone, anybody that's in my chat or that listens to my chat, that has gone through this or experienced this themselves. My heart, I wish I could give you a hug and tell you that talking about it is best. It took me a long time to talk about how I felt about everything that happened. And a lot of times you feel like you're the one to blame. What did I do? What did I do? But there's so much that goes into all this. It's not an easy black and white. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this today on the live, because I didn't want us to really think about Kathy Allen necessarily as this evil woman, because I don't necessarily believe that. But I do believe that she was manipulated. And I do believe that she was lied to by Richard, for sure. And I think that she felt that the man she loved could never do this. And I see how, I can see how that happens. I see how that dynamic happens when you've been with someone for 30 years and you have that complete devotion and love to them. You're just not going to let your head wrap around it. And it's not as easy as black and white. There are many, many gray areas in this. But I think that what has to happen in our society as a whole is the stigma from all of this stuff has to go away. And we have to make it easier for women and for men to talk about this abuse. That is where I think it's at. And it shouldn't be such a quote unquote taboo subject to where, oh, well, that wouldn't happen in our family. Well, that wouldn't happen. You do not know that. Miranda, I'm so sorry, my dear. I'm so, so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's like I said, it's a horrible thing, It's a horrible, horrible thing. When it was happening to me, I didn't know that what was happening to me was considered that. Now I know, because at the time I really didn't even know what was happening to me. If that makes any sense. I was kind of naive. But back then, I think 13-year-olds know a lot more nowadays than what we did back when I was 13. I was kind of sheltered a bit about it, but for, all the people that still are professing that this man is innocent, I'm sorry that they can't use their critical thinking to figure it out, and I hope that they get to a point where they can. Who knows, Ellen? She may not know why he was fired from Walmart. It's not like Walmart's going to call up your wife and tell them why you were fired. It's confidential, right? So, yeah, GP, I get you. I started seeing a therapist after I lost my son. And I've been seeing a therapist on and off ever since, my entire life. I was able to finally work through a lot of stuff. I was carrying a lot of baggage. I think that's what helped with my weight loss was I was covering myself up. I was trying to cover myself, cover my pain, cover the things that, that were hurting me, the holes that were in me. And I was able to finally figure out that filling those holes with food was not what I needed to do. Oh yeah, families lie about it. Families rally around the abuser. I've found that a lot of times families won't believe the child. They won't believe, that, and I always told my daughter, if any of you or my grandchildren ever came to me and told me that was happening to them, that would be it. That would be it. I wouldn't need anything else. Kids don't normally, it's not normal for children to lie about this. Most of the time, these kids have no, I would say 99.9% of the time, children don't even know what's happening to them. They just know they don't want it to happen and they want it to stop. And I thought it was quite interesting when the question was posed to the one psychiatrist, does sexual, if you were sexually abused as a child, will that make you a murderer? Oh, nobody knows what that's going to do. Everybody is different. We all have different breaking points, right? And you can't just whitewash the whole thing and say this about one group and say this about another. It's individual on how someone's going to handle all of this. I don't think we know what makes people able to take another human being's life. I don't know that we'll ever know for sure what it is. But I know that a lot of these people have been labeled, psychopaths have no empathy and they have no caring for humanity or human life like we do. They don't see things the same way. So that makes it, how do you know if you're living with a psychopath? Because just because you're a psychopath doesn't mean you're a murderer, right? You guys do know that, right? You do realize that psychopaths live among us and that not all of them have killed, right? Yeah. Maria Nemes says, nurture and nature. It's a deadly match in Richard Allen. Yes. And so, most of us who come across these psychological types in our lives, in our world, sometimes we don't even recognize it. And the psychopath is so good at blending in. That's one of the things they're able to do, is they can blend in and they can hide that one side of them. Phil Bond says it's hard to admit to when married to a person addicted to anything. After they are gone, it's easier to see looking back on the life you had with them. It's horrifying to see and admit. Absolutely. I think no matter what it is, alcohol, drugs, food, it doesn't matter. It's really hard to, hi, Tina. Thank you so much. It's good to see you. Um, uh, um, it's always easy to play Monday morning quarterback and look back on something and say, well, they should have done this or should have done that. We've done that about this case for a very long time. What should they have known? When should they have known it? It is so easy to do that. Do I think that the law enforcement in this case messed up? Absolutely. Do I think they regret it? Absolutely. Do I think they did it intentionally? Absolutely not. The men and women who worked on this case wanted so badly to solve it for Abby and Libby. They'd never seen anything like it in any of their careers. It was horrific. Anybody that saw those crime scene photos in court knows how horrific it was. And when you're dealing with a person who can blend in so well, who's like a chameleon, and who can live out their fantasy life online, but after a while it's not doing its thing for them, or they want to bring that fantasy to reality, that's where things become frightening. And I think that's what we're looking at here. I think the fantasy was not enough anymore. And I think the fantasy needed to be lived out. And that was it. Maria says they blend in especially in a small community and internet access. Most of them live out their desires online. Some want more. Some have enabling family members. Some are lucky. Yes. And do I believe that Richard Allen was lucky that day? I do. I believe that there a lot of things happened that made him lucky. But at the same time, when you look back at the evidence against him, that's one of the things that I would say to anyone who says he's not bridge guy is then he had to be the most unluckiest SOB in the history of history. Because all of the things that point to him, how could you be even so, so unlucky? And absolutely, there were so many lies that were put out, Miranda, by the defense team and their followers. And they still will be, because those people will not ever give up the ship. They are going to die on that hill with the fact that they can't, because what's it mean? If they were to go back and say, I was wrong, they have to admit to that. And these people can't admit that they're wrong. These people cannot admit that they were on the wrong side of history in this case. And that in itself is sad and sick. And absolutely thank God for the Kathy Shanks of the world. Because that woman, if anybody deserves the reward in this case, to me, it would be her. She absolutely is the reason why Richard Allen is in jail, in my opinion, because had she not come across that tip, I don't know that we would have ever found Richard Allen. And she worked that entire time pro bono. She was retired and just came in and gave her time. So, hi, Bees. How are you? Good to see you. Just so you know, Bees9, I did take down the video of HCC. Thank you so much for bringing it to my attention about what he said at the end of that. I didn't watch the whole video, and that's my fault. And I apologize to anyone who happened to see that on my community page, because absolutely I don't agree with that. And it was really sad to see that someone that I respected in this community would behave that way and use the girls in that fashion. So thank you for telling me, Bees. Thank you. Oh, I know. And I thank you for that. I'm so glad, because I did, like I said, had I watched to the end and saw what it was, I think I would, it was my own fault. And Jinx tried to bring it to my attention before you did. And it wasn't until I actually went and looked at it that I was like, oh, good Lord. So I did take it down. So thank you guys for looking out for me. I would be shocked, CJK, because I really had deep respect for him and thought he was much smarter than that. And I'm sad. I'm so saddened by it. It's just shameful. Jinx is on it. Jinx is awesome. I love her. She's great. And I'm really glad that I got to meet Jinx. She's one of the few people that I will continue to have a relationship with in my real life, because she's genuine and she's an amazing lady. I mean, she's just an amazing lady. She does so many kind things out of the goodness of her heart, and her heart is as big as the room I'm sitting in. I think she's just great. I love her to death. And I love all you guys the same. So don't think I don't. You guys that are in here with me that I see, You guys have stuck with me on my channel and have been here, and you guys are always here, and you always have such great input, and I love that about you. Like I said before, we can have a really good discussion and different points of view without attacking each other personally. You know. Oh, Bees 9, you are so nice. I think I'm lucky to have you guys. I think I'm lucky to have you guys. But I love the fact that there's people out there that are still willing to fight for the victims. I'll always be on the side of the victims, and I'll always be on the side of the victims' families. You know, I was just looking over some stuff because I'm going to start doing some videos on Brian Kohberger. That case, even though I haven't been covering it as much, I've been following it from day one as well. And I've been watching a lot of the trial coverage. And you guys, I wanted to bring this up to you today. If you guys haven't been paying attention to Kohberger, you need to, because there's a Franks motion that they put out. I've always said that there's a lot of similarities what's been going on in the Kohberger case to what happened in the Delphi case. He's trying to get most all of the cell phone evidence, all the DNA evidence, and everything against him thrown out. And they were talking about a Franks motion. They've put forth, they want that hearing. They want a Franks hearing. So stay tuned, guys, because there's a lot going on in that case. And his court case is due to go to court in August of 2025. So I will be covering it because Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee need to have justice. What happened to them was horrific. And again, that's a huge circumstantial case, you guys. Even though we have DNA in that case from the knife sheath, the DNA that they got because he wasn't in CODIS, because that profile wasn't in CODIS, they had to go the familial DNA route to find out who he was. And Silas Silas said the same. Why do these folks want these killers roaming the streets? It's nuts. Yeah, no kidding. It absolutely is nuts. And I had said that before. If you were so adamant to have Richard Allen out, take him home with you, and as Ruckus used to say, rub his feet, put lotion on, and then let him watch your kids and your grandkids. If you feel that strongly about it, that's what I told Andrea Burkhart. I told her that on a tweet, but I guarantee you she didn't answer me. She's probably blocked me by now. But yeah, have him over for Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's so hilarious that they what they're trying to claim. But it'll be real, like I said, it's going to be real interesting to see what goes on. I told Andrea Burkhart that if she's so adamant that Richard Allen's innocence, why doesn't she give up the $4,000 a day that she was making off of the trial here in Delphi to Richard Allen's defense fund for his appeal? Yeah. But anyway, it's fine. I don't care. They can block me if they want, they can block me. They're not going to silence me. That's for sure. And I will always call out the ones that I feel are doing things for the wrong reasons. And oh, absolutely, she's a lawyer. Yeah, I don't know how good of a one, because she's on YouTube all day long and doing hours and hour long YouTubes, but Uh, I would think that if she was any kind of a decent lawyer, she'd be making money being a lawyer and not being on YouTube. But that's me. Um, I will tell you that another case that I'm going to jump into and I'm going to do a live on, and we're going to talk about it. And it's kind of around this same kind of topic that we were talking about today with the abuse, is the Menendez brothers. I don't know if any of you remember, but the Menendez trial happened right after OJ's verdict. And I watched it live. I watched all of that. So I want to talk about that because what those boys went through was horrific. And the abuse was allowed in their first trial and they were acquitted. It was not allowed in the second trial and they found them guilty and sentenced them to life without parole. And there is now a faction of people that want them released. And I believe that they need to be released. But we can talk about all of that and discuss all that when I do the live on their case. But I am going to cover the Menendez case because I want to talk about it. I think it's important. One of the things that Lyle says in his talking about the case 35 years later is that back then, when this was all going on, the abuse of boys was not so prevalent. It was not so well understood and accepted. And so a lot of people were just like, well, that didn't happen. Well, look what happened after that. Look what all came out after the Menendez's trial and after they talked about everything that happened to them. We found out about what was going on in the Catholic Church with boys. We found out what was going on in the Boy Scouts with boys. All of it started coming out. So what Andrea said to Becky, when Becky told me what Andrea said to her, that was the icing on the cake. I already knew that Andrea was up to no good when she went live and told her followers that she had never covered the Delphi case on her channel, but she was flying to Delphi for the trial. So hang on to your hats, guys. And the only reason she did that was because she was at 88,000 followers and she wanted to get over 120, or excuse me, over 100,000. She wanted to hit the 100,000 threshold for YouTube, and she did. She did it while she was in Delphi. Yeah, they're bad. We have it in all the cases, guys. These people go from one case to the other. You're never going to get rid of it. Nicely done said, oh boy, I watched part of one live of AB. It was silly. In my opinion, she is discussing her legal opinions and people receive it as facts. Yes, absolutely. She came up to Becky in the courthouse when she got to Delphi, when she flew in. She walked up to Becky Patty, who Becky didn't know who she was, and said, I'm only here to make sure that Richard Allen's Sixth Amendment rights are not violated. Who goes up to the victim of a brutal murder and her mother, it's her grandmother, but it was her mother who basically raised her. And who says that to them? I'm only here to make sure that the defendant's Sixth Amendment rights aren't violated. Yeah, what happened to the Menendez boys is so sad. And they've been portrayed as monsters. They've been portrayed as gold digging, kids, but these boys weren't. And there were classic signs of what happened to them. And it's horrific. it's absolutely horrific. And now that you have a person from one of the music groups that their dad represented, Menudo, come out and say that he also sexually abused him or sexually assaulted him, then, you know, that's where they're at now, and with trying to get them out. Tabitha says, I think she knew everything. She seems like she wears the trousers. Also, I don't think their daughter is happy with them. I love your channel. I've been watching you for years. Oh, thank you, Tabitha. I'm so happy that you've been here. And yeah, I think that she was not there. She didn't really want to be there, but you know, she was, I think, brought in by the defense as she had to be there. So, but yeah. 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 Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That is so sure. So true. Um, yep. We can only hope. Well, guys, I hate to jump off, but I wasn't expecting to be on here as long as I've been, but I have to go pick up my grandson from school. So I am going to cut this one short now. But I really, really, really am glad that you guys came on and shared this time with me today. I appreciate all of you so very much. Thank you for being here. Make sure that you press the subscribe and like button so that you can find me in your feed when I go live, because YouTube's been really bad about that, from what I understand. And, you know, whatever. But Mitzi Scott, thank you again for your $20 super sticker and for showing the channel some love today. I appreciate you guys so very much. And StreamYard is who I use to stream my live streams. I've used it for 3 years, and they just recently raised their prices to $44 a month. So it's really nice that you guys do help support that, because I do pay for all of those subscriptions and things so that I can do these live streams, and I appreciate it. And Mitzi, thank you so much for being a member for 18 months to my channel. I appreciate you, and for your being a moderator on my channel as well. All of you guys who moderate for me, I couldn't do this without you, and you're all super important to me. So please know that. Hey, Jinxie, it's okay, babe. I hope you feel better. I hate that you're sick. Big hugs, my dear. Big hugs. But thank you guys. Phil, absolutely. You guys can always come here. We'll always come and have discussion. In fact, let me know down in the comments some of the things that you would like to see on the channel. If there's cases you want me to cover or topics that you want us to discuss, just put them down there and we'll do them. Sounds like a plan. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for being here, guys.